All right, here we go. So let's see here. What I would like to take a look at today for this little tutorial is the light sensor for Arduino. I have a few pictures right here. Here's a nice little light sensor right here. There is a photosensitive diode right here on the front, ready to receive light and tell you exactly how much light it's seen, depending on what side it's on. Okay. This is actually a little knob. You can use a small screwdriver. They're on the side table down there. Use a small screwdriver, and you can actually change the sensitivity of this guy right here if it's in the digital setting. You cannot change the sensitivity in analog, but you can change the sensitivity in digital. Okay. And then back here we have a few pins. I should say the light sensors, they're on the side where all the Arduino parts are. They're in one of the red trays. I believe it's the second row down all the way on the left is where they are, but just make sure it's got this little guy at the end when you grab one to make sure you got the right one. Okay? All right, now these pins back here, you have AO. AO is your analog output pin right there. All right. DO is your digital output pin. Okay, so that tells you the Arduino. Analog is going to tell you how much light the sensor is seeing, and it's going to give you a number. I mean, in theory, between 0 and 1023, but a lot of times it's much more limited than that. Digital output, that's going to give you a 1 or a 0. That's going to give you a 1 one way or a 0 the other way. Okay, to be able to run this thing, you have GND. GND is your ground wire. Okay, it needs the ground to work, and just like VCC, these things need 5 volts to be able to run. So VCC is your 5 volts going into this thing. Now, you could use the Arduino to get the 5 volts, or you could put a wire from the Arduino 5 volts to the positive on your breadboard, and then use that to run this thing. Likewise, you can use the ground rail on your breadboard, connected to the ground on your Arduino, and then you could run multiple things like that if you want to. Okay, but that is the sensor, and these are the pins right here. We're going to talk about digital first, and then we're going to move on and we're going to talk about analog and take a look at each of them. All right, so let's see if I hit this. All right, so I have my sketch right here, ready to go. Let's go over here. All right, so we're wanting to do digital first. So in this case, I'm going to go File, Examples, and I want to say Basic, and I'm going to go Digital Read Serial. Digital Read Serial. Basically, I just want to see, what's going on with this thing, what's going on with the serial monitor. So I have it right here. Make it a little bit bigger. Hopefully you guys can see exactly what's going on. You can go ahead and get rid of this guy here. Make it a little bit bigger. That's all that there is to it. Okay. All right. So digital read serial, int push button equals 2. Basically just made an integer and we called it push button. And it's 2. That's going to end up, I believe, being the port of it. Yep, that's the port. Now this is a push button, but this is just digital read serial. You could change that to be light sensor if you wanted to. You could change that to be whatever variable you want it to be. Okay. And then down here, void setup, that's going to run only one time. Serial.begin 9600 semicolon. That just once again syncs up the Arduino to the computer, and it makes it so you can use this guy here. So you can use that serial monitor to actually be able to see what's going on with your sensor, see what numbers it's given back. And in this case, it's going to be given back a 1 or a 0. Okay. Down here, pin mode, push button, input. Okay, so that's just going to say pin mode. We're going to be an output or we're going to be an input. Well, the push button, which it's going to read as a 2, so now we know we're dealing with port 2, okay? The digital port 2, not the analog port 2, but the digital port 2, it's going to be an input. That's just setting up the Arduino to receive information from that port right there, Okay, void loop, curly brackets, int button state. So we just made another variable right here, another integer variable, and we named it button state. Okay, button state equals digital read push button. Well, push button is a variable that says 2. So the computer is just going to read this and say, all right, I'm going to read port 2. All right, so it's going to check out port 2, see what it is, and then down here, serial.println button state. All it's going to do is it's going to read that button state, and then it's going to tell us via the serial monitor what it actually is. Okay. Now I do have it all wired up right here. My little my light sensor right here. I should say delay of 1 millisecond. That just gives a moment just before it reads the next reading. You could make that bigger if you wanted to read more slowly in between all of the readings. Okay, I'm going to go up here, boom, nice little magnifying glass. I'm getting a lot of zeros right here, and that's okay. I have the thing pointing straight up towards the light. All right, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put my finger over it, and I'm getting ones. So now I know this thing reads a 1 if there's no light, a 0 if there is light. So ones and zeros. You can see it going back. You can't see me put my finger over it. Sorry about that. But it is working because every time I cover it up, I'm getting a 1. Okay? Now, back to that little dial. Let me pull this up. This little dial right here. Okay? Now I messed around with it just a little bit. You can see the little green light on your board. I'm seeing green when it is seeing light, and I'm seeing nothing when it's seeing dark. Now you can change the sensitivity of this guy. This little guy right here, you need a small screwdriver. Once again, those small screwdrivers, those are on the counter where all the Arduino stuff is. And I found out for mine, and I'm sure it's the same with yours, if I rotate it to the left, or if I rotate it counterclockwise, it became more sensitive. If I rotated mine to the right or clockwise, it became less sensitive. So, and that's just how these work. And once again, you got digital. You have ones and zeros, and that is all there is to it. Okay, now, just to say, we had our wire from here, digital output, to digital 2. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my Arduino. I'm going to close that guy right there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a look at the analog. So I'm going to go File, Examples, Basics, Analog Read Serial. So let's see what these things actually say with the analog read serial. I'm just going to get rid of my digital just so I'm not messing it up at all. I just don't want to confuse myself with it. All right, I'm going to change my wiring first because the wiring is very easy to mix up. The wiring is really easy to forget to change, okay? So on this side, I'm going to change my wire. And by the way, I'm using male-female wires, okay? Male on one end, female on the other. As you can see, these pins right here accept the female wire, okay? So I'm using male-female wires. I just changed it. I slid it off the digital output and put it on the analog output. So now I'm sending analog signals to my Arduino, but unfortunately they're going to the digital port 2. So on my Arduino I have to undo it from digital port 2, and I have to go into, in this case it's going to be analog 0, just because that is what the program is saying, okay? Let's take a look at it. Analog read serial. Void setup happens only once. Serial.begin 9600. Computer and the Arduino are run at the same speed. They're in sync and they can communicate with each other. Void loop, curly brackets. So it's going to do everything inside of that right there. Okay. Int sensor value equals analog read A0. Okay. So what we did here, we did a bunch of things. We created a variable called sensor value, okay? And we did an analog read. We read analog 0 to see what number is actually coming out of that guy. Okay, that's the analog output right there. All right. Let's see here, a serial print line sensor value. So now, excuse me, the computer can actually tell me what it's seen, all right? The sensor value that it's seen, and then the number that it's seen, and then delay 1 millisecond, just give it a moment just to catch up just a little bit, okay? I'm gonna go ahead, hit serial monitor. Oh, I did a big mistake. Of course, I'm getting all zeros here. I never uploaded the program to the Arduino, okay? I always do this, I always compile it. Even if I didn't change anything, I just want to make sure everything is good. It's all communicating. If it's not communicating, I probably have to go to Tools and then make sure I'm on my Arduino Uno, but it is, so we're good. I'm gonna go ahead, upload it. It's uploading, done uploading. Now that I have it in there, now I can see on my light sensor, there's a red light and a green light. That usually means things are working and working absolutely fine. Going down here, I have it pointing pretty much straight up to the lights on the top of the classroom. I'm getting a reading of 185. If I start putting, I'm gonna have my hand further up, start shading it, I'm getting up to, 300, stuff like that, getting lower and lower and lower. Looks like my green light came off, okay? But I'm getting upper 500s, lower to mid 600s. Now I'm pretty much touching it. I'm getting like 700, 800 a few times, stuff like that, okay? Now remember, analog can be anywhere between 0 to 1023. So just want to see just what we are seeing right here. And it's definitely working. Looks like the darker it is, the higher the number is. The darker it is, the higher the number is. So hopefully that helps you understand the light sensors just a little bit. I do want you to start out with just a simple, I want you to use the digital output, and I want you to just, when it gets dark enough, you put your hand over it or whatever, it turns on a light. That's all I wanted to do. Dark enough, go ahead and turn on a light, okay? Take a quick little video of that, upload it to Google Classroom to get credit for it, okay? All right, after that, what I would like you to do is try using the analog side of things, okay? Use the analog pin, all right? And then I want you to mess with the brightness of a light, okay? And I want you to try you'll probably have like 3 stages or 4 stages or something like that, where you have a single light, and it's gonna have to be into the PWM, okay? And then as it gets darker and darker and darker, as the light sensor is seen darker and darker, it goes up probably in stages, and it actually gets lighter, okay? I want to give you guys just a few hints for that. Let's see here, I'm going to go File, Examples, let's see here, Basics, and Fade. Hopefully that comes up. Yep, that came up right there. This one right here, if you remember, integer LED equals 9. We used, when we did the brightness thing, the fade thing, we have to use a PWM, port with a little squiggly in front of it, okay? 9, 10, 11 I think has it, 6 I think has it, I believe 3 has it. Pin mode LED output, remember that. But then down here, analog right, LED, whatever pin you're using goes there. And then whatever brightness you want it to be goes here, okay? So you can actually change how bright something is, and you can have it anywhere from 0 to 255. 255 is as bright as the LEDs will go. 0 is no light at all coming out of that. So that one's more challenging. Start out with the digital output one, and then try the analog output with the brightness one, okay? Once again, go ahead, help each other. Don't just tell each other the answers, because that's not learning, but go ahead, help each other for that. Thank you. Bye-bye.